At Great Wolf Lodge, there's adventure for the whole family. You and your pack can splash away in the indoor water park where it's always 84 degrees. There's a massive wave pool, a lazy river, and tons of water slides for your pack to enjoy together. And the fun doesn't stop there. Get ready to explore and play at adventure-packed attractions from Magi Quest, a live-action game that takes place throughout the lodge, to the Northern Lights Arcade. There's also a bunch of great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. And the best part, with 23 lodges across the country, you're always only a short drive away from adventure. I am so excited to visit Great Wolf Lodge with my nephew who's 6. He cannot wait for the water park. So bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Book your stay today at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the brilliant Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, Betty. How are you?
We are in the middle of Suicide Prevention Month right now. And to honor that, we're bringing to you a topic about suicide prevention. Teen depression and stress, what to look for, when to seek help. It is a topic that's really close to mine and Bree's heart, both having struggled with depression and anxiety ourselves, as well as we live in a school district where the rate of teenage suicide is rather high compared to the rest of the nation.
I believe it's one of the highest in the country, isn't it?
One of the highest in the country, Chandler Unified School District, yes. So this episode is all about teen depression and stress and what to look for. And to help us go through that is Elliot Kallen. He's the president of A Brighter Day, a nonprofit he co-founded with his wife in 2015 after the tragic loss of their 19-year-old son, Jake, to suicide. Inspired by Jake's hidden struggle with depression, the organization is dedicated to preventing teen suicide by providing families with vital resources to manage stress and mental health. And with that, let's get on with the show. Elliot, welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast, being one of the only few dads who have ever been on the podcast.
Well, I am honored. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. So we know your foundation, A Brighter Day, was born out of a deeply personal tragedy. Would you be willing to share your son Jake's story and how that experience shaped your mission and how you support families today?
Absolutely. This is why we're here in business, so to speak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you it's 10 years now, almost 10 years and almost 10 and a half years now. He was a sophomore at the University of Montana, and I didn't see it coming. His mother didn't see it coming. None of us saw it coming. No drugs, no alcohol. We were frantically looking for him on a Friday. His phone was turned off. Didn't feel right. Something just felt really off and wrong, and we could talk about that, what symptoms were or are. But it was just felt wrong. And at about 6:30 at night, Federal Express showed up with a 6-page suicide note.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
And the first paragraph was the main paragraph. And it said, "Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I never would have told you how I felt. I never would have asked for your help, and I never would have taken your help."
Mm.
And with that, we flew to Montana to go get his body, to bring it back. They did a wonderful job at the university. We brought it back. And it was on the way home, and I read that suicide note on the way there. You know, they talk about the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
When your child dies, you're not in grief yet. You're in shock.
Right.
Yeah. I imagine.
And so you do get the grief. And you go through all the stages, by the way. But I was in shock, and on the way home with his body under the plane, now I had a couple days to think about it because the state of Montana wouldn't let us leave with his body for 48 hours. Now I just focused on that paragraph, and I turned to his mom, and I said, "We've got to start a charity. We've always been very charitably inclined. We've got to start a nonprofit that helps families from going through the devastation and destruction that we're about to go through." And she said that she couldn't do it, but my wife got involved with it, obviously second marriage. And we started A Brighter Day charity to create resources on stress and depression for teens and their families with the singular goal of stopping teen suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've been doing since day one. It's about a 9.5-year-old charity on that. And we just uploaded to the website about 150 text and email comments from teens or families saying, "Thank you for saving my life," or "Thank you for saving my child's life."
That's a huge
so
impact.
amazing.
I can't tell you how many people we saved. It's a lot and it's significant, but most people aren't going to tell us anyway, on that. But it's significant. So we're here making a difference because you've got to make a difference. You're always going to be a victim of this as a parent. I don't care who you are, always going to be a victim. And the question is if you're going to be a bystander victim or an active participant changer of your victimhood. But your victimhood won't go away.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many lives I may change, it's not going to bring my son back in my life. He's still my screensaver. I still go to the cemetery and have conversations with him. The view doesn't change. The conversation rarely changes. But I know we're making a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge life change to go through. And you say like, it doesn't change your victimhood as a parent, because all parents out there, we all feel incredibly vulnerable, especially when our kids are going through this stress and showing some signs that maybe like we don't know what to look for. So in your foundation, Elliot, for some parents who may feel unsure, what are some of the subtle signs of stress, anxiety, or depression in teens that get overlooked?
Joanne, that's a great question. We get asked that every single day. And we
Yeah.
put them on a website. We've got thousands of pages of materials on the website, primarily written for parents, not for teens, because we all know that teens don't read. They text.
Yeah.
We have something for them too. But we have it on the website. And here's what to look for, in my opinion. And I'm speaking to you, Bree and Joanne, as a father. I'm certainly not a trained expert, but I probably know more about, or as much about teen suicide as any father in the United States or any parent in the United States, because I've made it my mission now to learn and to talk about it weekly, daily, monthly, podcasts, whatever it is. But here are some symptoms that you can begin to look for as a parent. And one of the problems you have as a parent is the difference between, quote unquote, a dumb teenager. Sorry about that word, but dumb teenager, because I was a dumb teenager. And a depressed teenager are just shades of gray. It's hard to tell that. So as a parent, you certainly don't want to overreact and start polarizing your child. And you don't want to underreact and miss the signs.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a very fine line you're walking.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of us parents, this is like that worst nightmare. And it can drive you crazy trying to figure out what the signs necessarily are or aren't. And when you were talking about Jake earlier, you said that there were some signs that you guys didn't see at the time, but now you understand them. Can you share with us some of those signs that you had saw that you didn't see, but now you know were some red flags, some warning lights?
So here are some of those popular signs out there. And that is the first thing they would do is they withdraw from the things that bring them joy: social settings, sports, friendships. So my son was a hockey player.
Okay.
And he played for the University of Montana. He played in high school. They retired his jersey for setting all types of records. The local arena retired his jersey as well. I had parents that came up to me after he was gone and said, I probably should have said something, in that after he scored multiple goals in a game, he wasn't really enjoying the locker room. He was sitting by himself. No. And even right before he died, the week before he died, he had a 7-goal game. It's a record game for him.
Yeah, that's amazing for hockey. Yeah.
And his coach told me that he sat by himself. He said, I just figured he was quirky. He couldn't enjoy it. He was pulling away from the joy that it brought. So that's something that I didn't see. You withdraw from friends. His friends told me after he died that he was awake when they were asleep and he was asleep when they were awake. He was pulling away from them, and they wish they had discussed that with somebody who was professional enough to see that. He had lost some weight. He simply just lost interest in eating. That's one of the signs. You either eat too much and you just can't put away the potato chips because you're trying to almost be self-destructive. And there are lots of eating disorders that have nothing to do with suicide.
Yeah.
But in his case, he simply said, I'm not going to eat, because it was a self-destructive thing. Those are the first signs that I saw. He was getting very different advice as mom and dad about his future.
Okay.
His mom wanted him to go into science and nonprofit with science, and particularly like Wild Kingdom type of thing with animals.
Okay.
I didn't think he had it in him. I was giving him advice. Just do something. You don't really care for science that much, so do something in business and we'll figure it out. And you can always join a nonprofit for animals if that's what you want to do as a board member or as a volunteer.
Yeah.
But his mom had a lot of power and a lot of grip over him, and he didn't want to tell her that he didn't like science. So rather than discuss with her Mom, I don't like science. I want to pull out of science. I want to get out of science, which you discussed with me. And I said, let's go down to the bursar's office. Let's go down to the registrar's office, and let's get you out of science and get out of the courses that you're not doing well in and you don't enjoy. He couldn't do it. So he simply stopped showing up to the classes.
Oh,
I'm definitely hearing this, and I can see this in behaviors that I myself had gone through when I was in college. So you're saying that you even like offered to come and help him with it, and he was like, nope, nope.
No, because he couldn't face his mom
Yeah.
with the guilt. And she did have a power over him of guilt because she had gone through some suicide and cancer herself.
Mm.
And so he just couldn't tell her how he was feeling because he didn't want to hurt her.
Yeah, he was
But
worried
he could
about how
share
that
it with
would
me.
impact her. Yeah.
And then he would say, Dad, please, you can't tell Mom. You just can't tell Mom. And I took it as, okay, I'm not going to tell Mom. That was obviously a mistake. I should have confronted the situation and attacked it head on. Of course, if you lose a child to suicide, or a parent or anybody to suicide, there were 100 things you would do differently right off the bat.
Right.
That is on my list.
yeah.
The outcome's the outcome. I learned in a little bit of counseling that I took is that no matter how guilty you feel or things that you wish you did differently, the outcome's not going to change anymore.
Well,
Right.
this is such a tricky area too, because a lot of times, like, he was a college student. He told you not to get involved with his relationship. You respected those boundaries with it. So it's really difficult in this situation to figure out, what as a parent do you step into and you help, and what as a parent don't you help? Because along like all the lines of parenting, you did what was to like help create an autonomous individual, someone who is in control of everything.
Yeah, and these are learning lessons too. Look, when I was at Rutgers in my sophomore year, I had a statistics class. It's probably one of my least favorite classes ever in my 4 years at Rutgers.
Yeah.
And I'm a math guy. I love math, and I'm pretty good at it, but I just had a block towards statistics. So I showed up the first day of class. I showed up for the midterm, and I decided, okay, I don't need to take this class. I'll just study the book, and then I don't have to show up anymore. And of course, that's the one class at Rutgers I had to repeat.
Oh.
I got a D in it because I deserved it. But that was a learning lesson for me to not be stupid like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I never told anybody what I was doing, but I learned from that. So he was kind of doing what I did in a way, but he wasn't learning from that or growing from that. He was withdrawing from that.
Yeah.
Same kind of road, but very different travel experience on that road.
Yeah.
Which is typical when people deal with depression and anxiety, to not be able to have the same kind of outcomes to normal everyday stressors that people without depression or anxiety have. And you talked a little bit about the pressure that your son was facing, and I want to get more into that pressure that kids face right after this.
One thing we always say here at No Guilt Mom, your kids' behavior is communication. And if we get curious about why it's happening instead of instantly reacting, that's where the change starts.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so excited about the Science of Parenting class on the Masterclass platform. It is full of research-backed strategies from top child and teen psychologists. We had one of the experts, Dr. Lisa D'Amour, come on the podcast and talk with us all about social media and screens. And I'm telling you, like, talking with Dr. Lisa just took my stress level from like a 10 to a 2.5. The experts on Masterclass are also parents. They get it. They know what works in real homes with real kids and real stress.
I got to tell you guys, I've had a really tough season of parenting where I have been struggling with staying calm. I mean, you hear me talk about it, I have got a short fuse. So after watching the Science of Parenting class, it actually helped me kind of understand what was going on developmentally with my kids so that I could actually be more helpful in those moments. I knew what to do. I walked away with practical tools that I use every day. And honestly, I'm feeling a lot more confident as a parent, like right away. And I use this. I think you should try it too.
That's what I loved about it too. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about realizing that how we respond to our kids impacts how they see the world and how they learn to manage their own emotions. That aligns exactly what we teach here at No Guilt Mom.
And honestly, guys, I love how the class even breaks down how to handle everything, no matter what age your kids are. If they're toddlers and having tantrums, or teens rolling their eyes and or having anxiety, you get to walk away with those realistic strategies, no guilt trips. And if you're parenting with stress or burnout, this class actually is going to help you realize why you feel that way so that you can start feeling better yourself.
Parenting doesn't come with a manual, but this one gets really close. It's like a cheat code, but one that's backed by science. The Science of Parenting is available now exclusively on Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/no guilt. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/no guilt. Masterclass.com/no guilt.
This is a message for anyone who's ever felt like their bra was just fine. Third Love is here so you don't have to settle for good enough. A company founded by women just like you who know what struggling to find a bra feels like. For over 10 years, they've been redefining what a comfortable bra looks and feels like, focusing on innovative design and high-quality materials. We're talking about bras, yes, bras, made with thoughtful details to solve common problems. Want to stay cool and comfortable all day? Third Love offers innovative thermo-regulating fabric that has you covered. Looking for a little extra lift? Need smoothing? Even need to add a cup size? They've got it. And the fit? It's unmatched. Third Love believes everyone deserves a bra that fits perfectly, which is why they offer over 60 sizes from AA through H. They even have exclusive half cup sizes, which means if you're in between sizes, you can get a perfect fit every time. Stop settling for average bras. Get solutions made for your body. Get $15 off your perfect fit bra at thirdlove.com with code podcast15.
Taking on a DIY job around the house is the ultimate summer project. But if your DIY home security system is a beware of dog sign, when your real pet is Princess the cat, that's safe-ish. To be actually safe, help protect your home with a DIY system from ADT. It's easy to install and gives you virtual assistance from ADT's technical support team. Best of all, you can tell everyone in the neighborhood you set it up yourself. Don't settle for safe-ish this summer. DIY with ADT instead. Visit ADT.com to learn more.
Elliot, today's teens, they face a lot of intense pressure, especially in our area that we live in. There is the expectation that you have to get perfect grades, that you have to look good for colleges, that you have to excel in sports to get all the opportunities, that you have to be involved in every opportunity and activity. How does this constant drive to be the best affect their mental health? And what can parents do to ease it?
Well, this is a question that you're asking me, Joanne, about the helicopter parent thing that we all have heard that phrase.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you I wasn't a helicopter parent. That wouldn't be honest. We also live in a very good school district in Northern California. It's the number 1 school district or number 2 in the whole state, which is amazing. And they all talk about how many kids go to college.
Yes.
And so I had my kids in private school through 8th grade. And I remember I picked them up in 4th grade, 3rd grade, somewhere around there. I picked them up and we're talking about how their day was. And I had a special person come in and talk to them. And all 3 of them said, Dad, we're going to Harvard when we graduate from high school.
Oh, that young.
At 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And I said, you had somebody come in and talk to you from Harvard today, didn't you? I said, yes. And we had a whole conversation about Harvard. But look at that. That was 3rd or 4th grade and they're being indoctrinated and inculcated that if you don't go Ivy League, you're a loser.
Right.
You know?
That's an insane thing, especially when Harvard has less than a 8% acceptance rate right now. Like, it's pretty much impossible to get into Harvard.
Even in Harvard, when you come to the West Coast, it's odd for them to take more than 1 or 2 students from any high school period.
Yeah.
You just have a number that stops.
Yeah.
But see, they were taught like that. Now, I was always taught, you go to college. I went to Rutgers. Rutgers is not Harvard. But I went to Rutgers, and you just went out to college. Every kid was expected to go to college.
Yeah.
That's what I expected from my kids.
Yeah.
What I didn't care about so much was what they majored in. I just had a requirement for them. I said, you could major in anything you want, as long as the major leads to one of 2 things, either a graduate degree. You cannot major in philosophy or communications, and it's such a big, broad area that you end up working for Macy's as a sales clerk because there are no other jobs for you.
I
So
can
that-
understand that concern. I can understand the concern there.
I would even say today for college students, just because I have a kid about to enter college, and just looking at my college life too, is that even whatever you major in, a job isn't guaranteed now for kids entering college. And so I think that might be another like hard thing that this generation has to go through, knowing that even if they do go to college, nothing is guaranteed afterwards for any sort of position. So, like this pressure that kids have on them to succeed, what's another thing parents can do to kind of ease it? You said a little bit about like not telling them exactly what they have to major in. What about like parents who have kids right now who are in high school, who are being told they have to do all the APs, they have
Yeah.
to take all the things, they have to do everything to succeed? What can those parents do?
I want to throw this in there too, real quick. Like, because I don't know if this happens out where you're at, and I don't know if all of our listeners in podcast land have the same thing. But like what Joanne was just talking about, I think it's important to articulate that it's not just and or the parents saying those things to the kids. They're getting that information from their teachers. Teachers are telling them like you have to be above and beyond if you want to get into XYZ. Counselors, like the college counselors, are telling them that, especially if you have a child that wants to take AP and, dual credit classes, AP all the way. It's not even necessarily a message coming from the parents. Like they're even getting it from their schools. So what can we do when it's not even coming from us?
Bree, I was listening to a podcast when my son was, I think, my older son, my twin son, was a sophomore at Washington University in St. Louis. And it was all about the experience of high school. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
And he said, or she said, I don't recall the person who was doing the podcast, and he said that now he graduated as valedictorian. Every AP class you could think of, he got into Harvard, he got into Dartmouth, he got into Amherst, and he got into Washington University in St. Louis and Northwestern. And he picked Washington University in St. Louis, and good for him. Turned out to be a good experience. And he said, you should ask your child who you pushed or they pushed themselves into the AP world, because he had a 4.6. And he had 50 straight, he got awarded some award. He had 50 straight A's in high school. And so I called him up and I said, Cody, I just listened to this podcast. They were talking about your experience in high school. And he was a goalie on the ice hockey team, and he was on lacrosse and cross country. I was super active, 3-page resume, it's what every college wants out of a kid. And pardon my language here. And I said, so what did you think of your experience? He said, well, Dad, it sucked.
Yeah.
And I said, why do you say that? He said, Dad, I know you didn't do this to me. I did this to myself. I understand that. But I'm never going to let my child go through what I put myself through, because I was sleep deprived for 3 straight years.
I believe it.
Yeah, and it wasn't worth it. So it is a really tough experience. He's one of those people that puts a lot of demand on themselves. I put a lot of demand on myself.
Yeah, I do too. I could be right there with you. A lot of demand.
We have a lot of self-imposed guilt. And I used to think that was a Jewish guilt thing, but I've learned that, boy, that crosses a lot of lines.
It's everywhere.
There's plenty of guilt to go around. As parents, I think they hand it out in like, huge sacks of guilt to hand us when we have our first kid.
We give our kids way too much guilt.
Yeah.
We also don't ask the right questions. If you want better answers, ask better questions. I was one of those people who, when my dad was in high school, when I was in high school, I didn't have my mother. She was sick for 2 years of my high school career, and bedridden and that. And my dad had 2 kids in college and was working and paying for a nurse that he never thought he'd have to pay for.
Yeah.
And he came over to me and he said, when this whole thing started, he said, listen, if you don't screw up your grades and you don't mess it up on the football team, I was a high school quarterback, I'm not going to bother you. Just don't mess it up. And so he would just come home from work and he'd say, how you doing? I said, fine. Or, okay, everything all right? Yep. That was our conversation. He wasn't being mean. He wasn't uncaring. I felt loved every minute of my world. I don't feel unloved. He just was busy.
Yeah.
You can't do that to your children anymore like my dad did with me. You have to find out what their favorite class is and why, what their least favorite class is and why, what's going on in chemistry that they're not doing well, what's going on with their best friend in those classes too, right? Yeah. How are they doing in the social world? Because their social world is not just about dating. It's the whole gamut of friendships, same-sex groups, nothing about sexual relations, just about interactions. How's that going? Bullying in our world was a fist to your face.
Yeah.
in today's world could be exactly what we're doing online right now in a very different way. And it could be in a thread that they got that made them feel horrible about themselves. So things have changed, and you've got to find better answers only by asking better questions. And maybe the most important thing, in the old days, we used to eat, you ate with your family. Sometimes you were a taxi driver like I was, and like you probably are, Joanne, right now.
Sometimes I have a driver now, so that's great. My daughter drives, so that's taken off a lot of my taxi
We
responsibilities.
went a little bit too much to In-N-Out Burger in California. But, you know, at least we talked a little bit in the car. But today, that cell phone makes kids withdraw into their phone. And so you've got to turn your phone off, get your kids to turn your phone off in the car. You got to keep your phone off in the car. Dinner table, no phones, including you. No calling the older sibling in college. No calling grandma at dinner. Nothing while dinner's going on. And you got to get into old-fashioned conversations. And here's the hard part that we do it as parents. You've got to create an atmosphere that's non-judgmental. Yeah. And as a man, that means don't fix it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. We're going to get into that right after this.
Okay, let's talk about money. Bree, do you know exactly how many financial accounts you have?
I have like 3 401ks. I sure don't. But I hope it's doing what it's supposed to. I just don't have time to figure out where it all is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you've got money coming in from all of these multiple places, it's so easy to assume that things are fine. But that's how we leave money on the table.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Monarch Money has been a game changer to help me with that. It pulls everything. I can connect it to my bank accounts, credit cards, investment accounts, and it turns it all into this really easy to read dashboard.
Yeah, what's really cool is it doesn't just show you the numbers, it tells you what's happening with your money. Like you may discover that you're not saving nearly as much as you thought.
Yep, Monarch gives me that big picture view so nothing slips through the cracks.
So if you're trying to save more, invest smarter, or just stop stressing over money, don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code NOGUILT at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code NOGUILT.
DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between, for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
So, Elliot, before the break, you said that as a parent, you have to be non-judgmental. And you're like, as a dad, don't fix it. And I have to tell you, moms have the same tendency. We want to fix all the things. So I want to hear from your perspective, though. What are you telling not to fix?
Well, let's assume that, because we had this happen, the best class that they're having is, let's call it English or history, right? They enjoy that. I'm a history guy. I got lit up when you talked about history. And if I could do my world over again and money didn't mean anything, I would teach high school history because I enjoyed it so much. The class that my kids hated was chemistry. Turns out they just not only couldn't they relate to the teacher, they couldn't relate to where am I ever going to need chemistry in my life? I'm never going to mix hydrochloric acid and baking soda and come up with something.
I 100% support that thought process of your kids. I hated chemistry too.
Always cooking. But I didn't like chemistry either. I had a really hard time in chemistry. So I'm just being the devil's advocate here.
And I love to cook, and I consider myself an amateur chef, but I can't bake my way out of a paper bag because I didn't like chemistry. Baking is all about chemistry. It really is.
It is.
Anyway, and so it turns out with my kids, they didn't like chemistry, even though my son got an A in chemistry. My daughter, that's the class she had to do over. But I thought when I talked about chemistry, oh, you're not doing well in chemistry? I know how to fix that. I'll get you a tutor. And I hired a tutor right away. Oh. That's what I mean by fixing it. It turned out that what she was doing for my daughter, not my son, what she was doing is she withdrew from chemistry class because her best girlfriends also withdrew from chemistry class mentally and were skipping it half the time or were fooling around, or even worse, they were getting high before chemistry class.
Oh my God, that is a recipe for God. I can't even imagine trying to do something that makes you forget things in a class where it's really important you remember things.
It's self-destructive. That's self-destructive behavior. And so instead of me hiring a tutor when she's getting high or they're getting high, I should have said, let's talk about what's really going on behind the scenes, and said, how's Mary or Jennifer doing? How are they doing? Well, they're not doing well either. Oh, so are you guys showing up to class? And now you start finding out better answers, because I would have asked better questions, but I didn't ask it. I immediately went to fixing that by hiring a high school tutor to work with them. And that wouldn't have been that wasn't the right answer.
It's a lot of what we talk about with our No Guilt Mom community about asking questions to make sure that you are finding the root of the issue instead of assuming, which we always, when we assume, we always get it wrong, always. And that's when we go into fix it mode and we create this disconnection between us and our kids. My question for you, Elliot, is like, how much education should we give to our kids about suicide prevention? Because when you talked about your son and how he was withdrawing and all of his friends said he was withdrawing and how he wasn't eating, it's one of those situations where we can't be there as a parent. So we kind of have to rely on our kids more so. Like, what do you say about that? How could we reinforce our kids to help them notice the signs for when they need to seek help if we're not around?
Well, I think that's a great question that I'm so glad that you actually are engaging in that question, because it's a question that scares parents. Because principals have been taught that if you talk about depression or pre-suicide, that you're sanctioning it.
Yep.
And they're totally wrong.
Yeah.
That's the same thing as when I was a kid. It's not changed in 50 years. So they're completely wrong on there. The more you talk about it, the more they understand that there are phases in your life when you're happier and sadder, and that's acceptable. And when you're elated or depressed, and that's acceptable. And that's not clinical. That's just part of life. I mean, your dog dies, you're depressed. Grandma died, you're depressed. These are somebody died in your family. These are reasons to be, and it's okay. You don't need a pill to make you undepressed because grandma passed away at 74 years old. It happened.
Yeah. Because there's a situation that happened that caused the depression. And I think what we get into as parents, that kind of like crazy line that goes through, is when there isn't a situation that happened and yet you feel this complete depression and you're not quite sure how to get out of it.
Right. It's okay to talk about when do we need to get some help? When do we need to talk to a professional, or to say, how are you feeling? Now, as a parent, if you can ask that question in a non-judgmental way and create an atmosphere, you might have the opportunity for them to actually answer that honestly and say, you know, I'm a little bit sad. Or they might say, I'm okay, but my best friend Joey, he's really sad. But they're really talking about themselves. They're just doing it through their best friend.
I've actually had that. My nephew, the first time he had major depression and had a suicide attempt, he called me because he was in a different state and he was asking me about his friend that had taken pills. And I was just like, well, you need to get your friend to the school nurse right away because they were at school. And just finding out later that that was him, it is like such a punch in the gut. And you come back and you ask yourself, why didn't I know? Why didn't I see that? And like you were talking about, if I had asked more questions in the moment, I probably would have been able to get there, because I did think it was a fishy conversation. But,
so Jake said to me, this is Christmas break. He died in middle of January. And he said to me as I was cooking dinner, he was on the couch, and he said, you know, Dad, I want you to know that when I was in high school, I considered suicide. Now, I put the knife down, whatever I was cutting, and I just looked up at him. I said, so where are you now? He said, no, that's behind me. I'm in a good place now. Now, he died 2 weeks later. So he wasn't in a good place. He was trying to come clean, trying to approach me. And I said, okay, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to get some help? He said, no, I'm over it. Now, apparently, he made a comment similar to that with his mom, because we're divorced in two different homes. And she asked a similar question. If she had come to me and said that, hey, he brought up the word suicide, or I had come to her and said he brought up the suicide, we might have thought at that moment maybe he's reaching out for help, but we didn't put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And he was reaching out for help, but we missed it. We're not trained professionals.
Right.
But I think that as a parent, you should talk about, hey, there are signs that you're feeling so sad that you should get some help or talk to me about it. And I do it this way. I said, I want you to think of your life as a six-sided box, 4 walls, top and bottom, 6 sides.
Okay.
And for most of us, those walls are colored blue or green or gray, depending on the mood you're in. Really good mood is blue sky all the time. Crappy mood is kind of gray and raining. That's, we know that gray turns to blue and green is kind of in between there. Pick a different color besides green if green doesn't bother you, whatever. But I think suicide is those walls become black.
Yeah.
And now there's no light coming in. And when all those walls are jet black, you're now in suicide mode because today's really bad. Yesterday was just as bad. Tomorrow's going to be even worse. Why bother? No one's going to miss me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's suicide. That's the track they're on. So what we've created, we have a teen crisis texting line that we created that's on our website. You type the word BRIGHTER, BRIGHTER, to 741-741, 24/7, all 365 days, Christmas, birthdays, weekends, 3 a.m, midnight, the middle of chemistry class, whatever you wanted. Type that word in and you will, within 2 minutes or less, have a texting partner who's a trained professional, and they will work with you 45 minutes at a time. Then you can hang up and do it again. We're only licensed to do this 45 minutes at a time before you get to state licensing. And I want you to know we get 60 new teens a month that do this, which is amazing. And they ask the same question in the first 5 minutes.
What's the question?
What's that question?
Am I the only one feeling this way?
Oh.
They've totally isolated themselves socially from the world, and they're wallowing in this sadness. Whatever you want to think of, a 6-sided box, black, or just sadness, or umbrella over, whatever your metaphor is for this, it's a moment of sadness that they are stuck in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they need help getting out of. Sometimes you as a parent can help them. Sometimes you can do things with them. Taking a weekly walk with your teen is a tremendous thing to do because we're all trained to walk and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
That's great. Eating dinner or pizza as a family, that might get you to talk over that in good ways. And maybe showing a little bit of vulnerability from your life. I mean, you two have stories to tell that you opened with, that you had some story, you have some history in your life where you hit some walls in your life. And obviously you're here, so you overcame these walls or these obstacles. Talk about that.
Right.
You give permission for your child to be sad, but don't give permission to go so far that they don't ask for help.
Yeah. Well, when you talked about your son saying, like, I've thought about suicide, and you said you wish you had talked to his mom or his mom has talked to you, what can parents do in that moment? If their kids are like, I'm fine, obviously just bringing suicide up is the warning sign. What's like the next step as a parent?
I would have immediately called his mom up, and either we would have gone out, which might have been awkward for him. We would have gone out for ice cream, just the two of us. I would have put my other 2 kids aside and taken him and said, let's go do something together, you and I. Just us. Now, he was a sports nut. I could have taken him to any sporting event out there and he would have enjoyed it because he was a sports enthusiast. Matter of fact, the best major would have been for him something in sports management. That really would have been the right major. That's one of my biggest regrets of raising him is why didn't we go to a school or look into even that school had a sports management program for you where you could have been working for a sports team when you graduated, because that probably would have been his perfect job. We would have gone to something and just talked about it. I had even said to somebody when he was a freshman in college, I said, I hope I get along with his wife one day if he gets married, because I know that if something happens and I don't get along with him, I can drop into where he's living and we can go to a football or a basketball or a hockey event and we will immediately click with each other.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of kid he was. And so that's what I would do differently is find out what can we do right now to click, because it turns out that teens hit a crisis wall when they are depressed that lasts 90 days or less. It doesn't last 3 years. It's 90 days or less. That doesn't mean they're not depressed for life, but the crisis of hurt and maybe self-hurt abates within 90 days. Mm-hmm. And that's the first crisis you have to get over and then to begin to tackle it long term.
So connection right away.
And then ask questions and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, and if I know, if somebody tell me that you're in a locker room, you're kind of isolating yourself. What's going on? What are you thinking of at that time? I said, when I was in a locker room with football and ice hockey growing up, man, we just had so much fun. We beat each other up. We had a good time. We put each other in headlocks. We played soap hockey in this big shower room where, sometimes kids got hurt in that even worse than the game because they fell. And it was a hoot. It was so much fun. It was some of my best memories were going to White Castle after a football game. We had more fun going to White Castle than we did at playing football because we were horsing around. Why aren't you doing any of that? What can I do to make that better? Have you talked to your other friends about just going out? Do you want to borrow the car? How about if I call 4 kids and I'll take you guys out and drop you guys off somewhere and go have some pizza somewhere? How about that? And we could have talked about that, but we didn't do that because we didn't have those conversations.
So connecting with kids, getting into their world, seeing what they're struggling with and sharing your own struggles too, just to let them know that there is a light, even if you're going through a sad time right now.
Yeah.
Elliot, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing these ways that parents can connect with their kids and also the signs that they could look for to help prevent teen suicide. And we like to end every episode on a high note. And so I want to ask you, what's coming up for you that you're excited about?
Well, the charity is moving forward and we're finally hiring a new executive director, which I'm super happy about, a young lady. She's 30 and she gets it, which I'm really happy. On the personal note, I own 2 financial advisory businesses and I got them both up for sale and it looks like it's going to happen. So
that's exciting.
I'm excited. And my goal is to start another company because I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I love to do.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, we are so glad that you have shared your story with us. I mean, I know that is not an easy story to share. And I was just telling Joanne before we interviewed, before we all got on here, I don't know if I would have had the kind of strength to do that after losing my child, to go, we're going to make something of this experience that's going to help others to not be in this again. And I just want to say, I really think that A Brighter Day is an amazing organization. And I love what you have been able to do with this. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I've interviewed both my children and they have said to me after each interview and said, Dad, please don't ever interview us again. It's just too hard. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard.
I will give you a recommendation for any parents that are going through what I've gone through is find a centering place for you that can bring you back to earth. Because if you have other children, you need to be present for your other children or grandchildren or whatever you end up doing. And my center place, and I'm really surprised, my temple or my sanctuary or my church is actually the cemetery. I go there and the way it's built, I have to stand on his grave because there's a plaque on the ground. It's the way it's made. And I talk, like I said, the view doesn't change, the conversation doesn't change. But when I leave, I'm much more grounded than when I showed up.
To find that centering place. Yes.
It's amazing.
So, thank you so much, Elliot, for being here today. And for everybody out there, remember, best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
If you'd like to support the show further, you can share episodes with your loved ones, leave a positive review, or follow us on social media at No Guilt Mom. You can also show your love by visiting our amazing podcast sponsors. We have a link in the show notes.